Every time you post something online, you kind of have an audience in mind, right? Your friends, your followers. But what if I told you there's a massive, invisible audience also watching? We're talking about automated scrapers. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on social media scraping, what it is, and why it's this incredibly powerful and, pretty controversial force shaping our whole digital world.
Seriously, just stop and think about your last public post for a second. A tweet, an Instagram story, maybe a comment on Facebook. You knew your friends would see it, of course. But here's the thing you probably didn't realize. Countless automated bots are also reading it. And they're not just browsing, they're collecting it.
So what exactly is this process? Well, put simply, social media scraping is the automated collection of public data. Instead of people, you have software, bots, and scripts that are systematically gathering information from platforms like X, Facebook, and TikTok. Just imagine a team of super-fast robots that can read and save everything that gets posted out in the open.
But why? Why go through all this trouble? I mean, this isn't just about hoarding data for the sake of it. There's a really clear goal behind all this, and it's all about finding the patterns in all that noise.
Right, so the whole point of scraping is to let companies, researchers, and even security pros analyze public behavior on a massive, massive scale. They're looking for the kinds of patterns and trends you would never, ever spot just by scrolling through your own feed. It's all about turning millions of individual public posts into one big, coherent story about what we're all thinking and doing online.
So what kind of info are we talking about here? It's really important to remember, this is all public data. We're talking about the actual content of your posts, sure, but also things like engagement, your likes, your comments, and even metadata, like timestamps. If your location is public, that gets collected too. Your username, your bio, the hashtags you use, it's all part of the data set.
Okay, so we've got the what and the why down. Now let's get into the how. Let's take a look at the actual tech behind how all this data collection really happens.
So there are basically two main ways a scraper can go about this. The first is through something called an API. You can think of this as using the official front door that the platform provides. It's all structured, it's generally allowed, but it definitely has rules and limits. The second method, that's direct web scraping. This is, well, it's more like sneaking around the back. It just extracts data directly from the website's code, which can definitely violate a platform's rules, and it's way less reliable.
And there's a whole toolbox out there to make this happen. For the coders, you've got specialized libraries in languages like Python. Others use those official platform APIs we just talked about. And for people who don't code, there are even commercial tools that make scraping as easy as pointing and clicking. Honestly, the whole thing has become incredibly accessible.
So with all this data flying around, where does it actually end up being used? Let's check out a couple of major real-world examples that really show the power of scraping in action.
First up, one of the absolute biggest users of scraped data, the world of marketing and brand management. For businesses, the internet is basically the world's largest focus group, and scraping is how they listen in. You see, companies are constantly scraping for any mention of their brand to figure out what customers are saying, the good, the bad, all of it. This helps them gauge public sentiment, keep an eye on what their competitors are doing, and even spot the next big market trend before it really takes off. They're turning that fire hose of public opinion into real, actionable business intelligence. But it's not all about selling you stuff. Scraping is also a super-critical tool for cybersecurity professionals. They use it for something called open source intelligence, or OSINT for short. It's basically the art of gathering information from public sources to protect against threats. Security pros use scraping to connect the dots that are already out there in public. They can spot coordinated phishing attacks by tracking malicious links, find whole networks of fake accounts spreading bad info, and even uncover patterns that might point to a threat coming from inside a company. They're using the exact same public data, but for a totally different reason, to keep us safe.
Okay, so this is obviously a really powerful tool, but it also operates in a bit of a legal and ethical gray area. There's a very fine line between gathering public intelligence and, violating privacy. So let's dive into the risks.
Yeah, scraping is not a free-for-all, not at all. Social media platforms are actively fighting back against it. They'll ban accounts, they'll block the IP addresses of scrapers, and in some big cases, they'll even take legal action. Plus, there's always the risk that the data itself is just wrong if the scraping script isn't built right. It is a constant cat-and-mouse game.
And this brings us to maybe the most important distinction of all. What's ethical versus what's unethical? See, ethical scraping plays by the rules. It sticks strictly to public data, it respects the platform's rules, and it follows data protection laws. Unethical scraping?
It does the exact opposite. It's trying to get into private info, bypassing security, and just ignoring the rules. At the end of the day, it's the intent and the method that separates responsible research from a flat-out violation of privacy.
So we've looked at the what, the why, the how, and all the risks. What's the bottom line here? How should we really think about social media scraping as a whole?
I think it really comes down to this. Social media scraping is, without a doubt, an incredibly powerful technique. It unlocks insights that were just unimaginable a couple of decades ago. But all that power comes with a huge amount of responsibility. When it's used ethically and legally, it can drive innovation, it can boost security. When it's not, well, it can cross some very serious lines.
And that leaves us with a really fundamental question for our digital age, doesn't it? If social media is our new public square, what expectation of privacy can we, or should we, really have? As technology like scraping gets more and more advanced, defining that line isn't just a technical challenge, it's one of the most important conversations of our time.